and Meghan, I'm like, "That's all you have? Really? Really?" So we are going to get into all of this.
The announcement of a lucrative multi-year extension of their Netflix deal through our Tool Productions is already being overshadowed by an unwelcome reality, the sharp eye of U.S. federal and California state tax authorities. This should have been a headline victory for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, but instead it is being overshadowed by an unwelcome reality. Within a matter of hours after the news of the transaction became public, financial experts began to issue warnings that the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, and the California Franchise Tax Board would almost surely be investigating every single penny of the agreement, as well as for a couple resided in Montecito, which is one of the most costly tax zones in the state of California. Not only does this imply a substantial paycheck, but it also indicates that they may be subject to one of the most severe tax bills of their whole life. The year 2020 marked the beginning of the couple's affiliation with Netflix.
That's the level of Harry and Meghan's deal here. They want to leave the door open, particularly for divorce. That is what Netflix is banking on, I think, here in many ways.
Their relocation to California at the time was framed as an opportunity to control their own narrative, explore creative projects, and enjoy the freedoms that were denied to them under the watchful eye of the palace. Arch Productions became the vehicle for that ambition, producing documentaries, scripted features, and series that would bear their personal stamp. This occurred just a few short months after they formally severed their ties with their roles as senior members of the British royal family. The uncompromising reach of youth tax enforcement and financial specialists were eager to point out that California's status, however, is something that neither the royal courtiers nor the British tabloids could have prepared them for. However, in the United States, that desire also comes with something that neither of them could have.
Keeps Harry and Meghan somewhat on the hook and around, but at the same time without fully going 100% with them as well. So let's go ahead and look at the Hollywood Reporter piece, which had the best headline. And
because of Netflix's legal residence, the state will be entitled to a portion of every dollar made, regardless of whether or not the company operates on a worldwide scale. The highest state tax rates reach more than 13%. As a result of the fact that California is one of the most costly regions in the United States to earn money, a significant number of wealthy individuals and corporations have located their operations there. Moreover, the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, will apply federal tax rates on top of that, which could possibly increase the aggregate burden to levels that only a small percentage of high incomes are able to bear without careful financial preparation. Regulators will be looking for precise planning, which is exactly what they will be searching for. First and foremost, the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, and the California Franchise Tax Board will be concerned with the structure of the transaction. Does Netflix make a direct payment to Archwell Productions for those content?
on that, they're not bringing in any money. They've had a lot of flops. Disney is a disaster zone. They've had a lot of flops. Everybody is flopping pretty hard. And Netflix is the only streaming service. They won the streaming war and they're doing fairly well. So that is the best spot. And none of these projects.
Is there a more complicated system in place when that shifts income in a way that may be perceived as decreasing tax liabilities? Or does the company have the capacity to deduct expenses before transferring earnings onto Harry and Meghan in the form of wages or dividends? Tax officials are skilled at dissecting such arrangements, and when a deal is worth millions of dollars, they will take the time to comprehend every link in the chain. The fact that Archwell's is both a production firm that is for profit and the name of their charitable foundation adds to the attention that is being applied to the situation. On the other hand, public records have already demonstrated that there are similarities in branding, staffing, and resource allocation, despite the fact that these are legally separate businesses. In the past, the California Franchise Tax Board has conducted investigations to determine whether or not personal
Joker, Polo completely and utterly flopped. Live to Lead completely flopped. Heart of Invictus completely flopped. I will say again, my Heart of Invictus review got more views than Heart of Invictus. Yeah. So not that many. And it says, as part of the new deal, Netflix is also partnering.
Any expenses associated with Netflix programs that intersect with the public lifestyle of the Sussex, such as travel accommodations and security, will need to be explicitly separated from personal indulgences. Charitable money are being used to underwrite for-profit activities. In the event that they are not, those expenditures might not be allowed as deductions, which would result in an increase in taxable income and would even result in fines. Another factor that does not assist is the fact that the couple's way of life is quite public. They have a growing security apparatus, a private aircraft, a high-end wardrobe, and the Montecito estate, all of which are staples of their public image. If any of these luxuries have been charged in part to Archwell Productions under the premise of business expenditures, brand, or other expenses, then Archwell Productions is responsible for them.
This is very key here, is that Meghan is the one commenting on the deal, because I think Harry's done. I think Harry does not give a crap about this. I think Harry is basically checked out. Once Polo failed, once Heart of Invictus failed, he's like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm out of this. And Meghan is the one desperately trying to make this work. And to give her credit,
The Internal Revenue Service and the state of California will be interested in requesting receipts, and they will anticipate that those receipts will be able to survive detailed inspection. Their Netflix partnership will be extended for a number of years as a result of this transaction, which only serves to enhance the level of complexity. Depending on the circumstances, income from creative contracts may be staggered, delayed, or split between accounting periods. These are all methods that may attract the notice of regulatory authorities. Because of the magnitude and length of this contract, the Internal Revenue Service will most likely monitor the transaction over time. This will ensure that no revenue is moved to jurisdictions with lower tax rates or that it is buried under manufacturing expenses that are not clear. Similarly, the state of California will want to make certain that the entire amount of taxable income for each year is collected without any exceptions of any kind.
in this, she is not. So she says, we're proud to extend our partnership with Netflix and expand our work together to include the As Ever brand. I feel like Meghan putting that first again shows where Meghan's emphasis is. She keeps roping Netflix in. And I still firmly believe Netflix is not that invested with As Ever.
There are more than just financial stakes at play here. Given the current state of affairs where the public's perception of Harry and Meghan is already being called into question, a high-profile tax issue could have a devastating impact. Despite the fact that they are sympathetic to celebrity causes, Americans have a low tolerance for the notion that affluent people exploit systems in order to avoid paying their fair amount. The slightest indication of improper behavior might directly contribute to the mounting image problem that the couple is experiencing, providing critics with new ammo and compelling their supporters to defend something that cannot be defended. This Netflix arrangement, which was intended to project stability and durability for Archwell, may now act as the very cause for a fresh wave of distrust, which is an ironic turn of events. In the court of public opinion, the Internal Revenue Service and the California Franchise Tax Board do not operate
To let everybody save face and put the best spin on it. But let's look it up right now. Meghan Markle's wine is still in stock. And again, she teased it potentially. Let's go over here. Selling out. And yet it's still in stock. So is Meghan Markle finally stocking correctly? Like, we don't really know. And
Records, figures, and legal duties are the things that they deal with. In the event that there is any aspect of the structure of this transaction that does not conform exactly with the laws governing taxes, the couple may find themselves not only confronted with a bill that is so large that it causes their eyes to wet, but also with the public humiliation of being branded as taxes-avoiding millionaires. The announcement of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's freshly extended multi-year deal with Netflix was made with all the anticipated Hollywood gloss, including confident smiles, vague promises about future projects, and a focus on creative freedom. The announcement was made after the ink had dried on the deal. In a straightforward manner, the intention was to convey the idea that Archwell Productions continued to be in demand, continued to generate profits, and continued to be a significant player in the streaming battles. There is, however, a parallel world that is currently taking shape behind the headlines.
of running a business is not playing the stalking games that Meghan has had, not putting enough stock in of the tea, of the jam or whatever, the spread. We have the wine now, all these sorts of things. The reason the questions exist, the reason I criticize is because she played games in the first place. And when you play stupid games, you win.
Has nothing to do with glitz and glamour or the branding of celebrities. This fact is the slow and methodical scrutiny that is carried out by the Internal Revenue Service of the United States of America and the California Franchise Tax Board, two governments that care very little about image and everything about compliance for the IRS. The contract that Harry and Meghan have signed is not like any other celebrity contract. Due to the fact that it is a high-value arrangement that involves foreign nationals, a United States registered for-profit entity, and intricate intellectual property rights for the California tax authorities, it presents an opportunity to guarantee that one of the most prominent households in the state is paying the full amount of what the law requires. These entities, when working together, have the ability to turn what ought to be a Hollywood victory lap into a drawn-out and costly process.
But this whole idea here, this whole gobbledygook nonsense, which drives me absolutely batty, going over how my husband and I feel so inspired. I can't think of two people less inspired than the two of you. Like, literally, your best performing thing was
A procedure that could be considered embarrassing. Following the completion of the first phase, a structural assessment will be conducted to determine how Netflix is paying Arkwell, how Arkwell is paying its owners, and whether or not the flows are intended to move income in ways that reduce taxable exposure. Almost always, transactions of this magnitude are handled through multiple layers. The payments are received by corporate organizations, expenditures are deducted, and then the remaining funds are distributed. The question of whether or not the deductions are legal is essential. Any personal expenses that are disguised as business charges are a red signal in the state of California. The audit teams of the Franchise Tax Board are infamous for their attention to detail, particularly when it comes to top earners in the entertainment sector. They will want to see contracts, payment schedules, invoices, and other documents.
you don't have that much to offer. And then it goes on to say, Archwell teams create thoughtful content. None of your content is particularly thoughtful or thought provoking, to be quite honest, that resonates, and across genres too. You guys have barely done any other genres. All you've done is documentaries. Let's be honest, and bad ones at that. And I like
Receipts and records of internal accounting that distinguish personal benefit from benefits received from the business. In the event that a Montecito gardener's bill, for instance, has been allotted for the purpose of setting landscaping for a documentary shoot, the board will question whether or not the work in question was truly project-specific or merely maintenance for a luxury estate. With the expanded authority granted by federal law, the Internal Revenue Service (IRS) will take a similar approach. However, they will be on the lookout for indications of income deferral, underreported royalties, or the use of intercompany agreements to conceal taxable profits. Given Harry's UK citizenship, they'll also examine whether any portion of the earnings has been routed through the UK for tax treaty purposes, a legitimate tool when done properly, but a violation when misapplied.
struggles with being boring, bloated, and not having a decent story. Every single one of them. So goes on to say as well, resonates globally, it doesn't, and celebrates our shared vision. I still don't know what her vision is. Her vision is basically, I want to make money and look as fake charitable as possible.
The proximity of Arkwell Productions and the Arkwell Foundation, despite the fact that they are legally separate entities, adds another layer of complexity. The other is a registered charity, while the first is a for-profit organization. Both of their brands are entwined here. Their public messaging is shared. They occasionally share staff members who have jobs that overlap, and they frequently connect their stories with charitable causes for tax agencies that overlap. This is an issue that should be investigated more. However, if charitable staff and assets are used in any manner to assist for-profit Netflix initiatives, the expenses associated with that crossover could be disallowed, which would result in an increase in the taxable income of Arkwell Productions. This would be even more problematic if the agencies feel that Netflix is intentionally blurring the borders between charitable and for-profit uses.
Like, Bella should take a bow here. With Love Meghan was her idea. As ever, was her idea. It wasn't Meghan's. So she says, Harry and Meghan are influential voices whose stories resonate with audiences everywhere. Okay, that's happy talk for people hate watch them, and that's sort of good enough for Netflix right now. They're not influencing people.
There is a possibility that this will result in inquiries into whether or not the charity foundation itself is being utilized to offset duties related to profit. The authorities in charge of taxes have a long memory and a thick file of precedents involving celebrities whose public image was damaged as a result of an audit that escalated into an investigation. Wesley Snipes, an actor, is being pursued by the Internal Revenue Service (IRS) for tax evasion, while Lionel Richie, a musician, is being pursued by the California Tax Board for unpaid state taxes. Both of these cases demonstrate how persistent legal agencies can be when a high-profile individual is involved. One thing that all of these situations have in common is the combination of money and visibility. People who make a lot of money in the entertainment industry typically have numerous sources of income, including acting fees, sponsorships, royalties, and production contracts.
Is I watch polo and then I want to go see more polo. That's influence. I watched polo. It looked boring and dull, and the people looked very self-indulgent. So I did not want to go and watch more polo. So yeah, it sort of failed. The response to their work speaks for itself. Really.
That are intertwined in such a way that audits are time-consuming but have the potential to be profitable for the government. This pattern is perfectly suited to the Arch Wells Netflix transaction, which includes creative royalties, production fees, and probably even executive producer compensation, all rolled into one cohesive package. A tax issue can be kept reasonably low profile for the majority of Hollywood producers. However, due to the visibility of Harry and Meghan, every procedural step will be emphasized. Even if the pair complies with all of the requirements, the mere knowledge that they are being investigated could cause a shift in public image. A letter from the Internal Revenue Service (IRS) requesting clarification becomes a headline, and a regular audit meeting becomes a summons in the tabloids.